Hey folks, this is Johnny and welcome to a new segment here for Home Studio Trainer called Studio 16 Tidbits. And this is going to be a video series on small parts and pieces of Studio One and just really quick, even faster than the other videos that I've done before. So what we're going to do here, we're going to go into Studio One and we're going to work with something called the MIDI+8 MIDI router. So if we go here, you can see there is the MIDI Plus right there. It's got the yellow and the green lines all connected to it. And what this thing does is it allows the connectivity of external MIDI devices like modules, drum machines, and things like that. Now, there are a bunch of these things by different manufacturers that are available all over the place. This particular one I really like because the latest version of the Mac OS Ventura does not allow me to use my M Audio stuff. If there is if there is a driver out there for the M Audio stuff, I have not been able to find one. So I did a quick internet search and I found the MIDI Plus. There's stuff by Motu and things like that, and I'm sure that they work with some of the newer OSs, but I can't confirm that. Okay, so why did I choose this particular one? Well, it was the first one that I could find that had 8 ins and 8 outs. 8 outs for the gear that I use. And I have since found others. Thank you to all of those that posted in Facebook pointing me to other options. So whether you are using the MIDI Plus, this isn't an ad. I'm not getting paid for the ad or anything like that. I just wanted something to be able to hook up 8 ins and 8 outs so that I could have multiple external MIDI pieces hooked up to my Studio One. And the subject came up, could you do a video on how you do the hookup? All right, so if you look above me here, you can see in the pictures right above me, you can actually see how I have the inputs plugged in to the MIDI Plus. And right now I only have one. I have the drum kit. And you can see it goes into MIDI 1. And whenever I tap a pad, that lights up. If you look at the picture below it, those are all of my outputs going to the MIDI devices that you see in the pic next door. There, right there. So you can see I've got the MIDI Plus, and I do have my my big SL controller keyboard and my drum kit that I can plug in. I just don't have the keyboard plugged in right now. But in my full setup, you can see that those are the only two devices that go in. So now the USB out of the MIDI Plus goes into my Mac, and I am able to route the 5 devices that you see there on the right. On the right, there on the far right, those are the MIDI devices that I actually have, and the MIDI outs that I have them connected to. And if you look at the picture right here, that is what I'm going to show you here today. All right, so if I go to the classroom here and I go ahead, and I don't have to open up a song, but I'm going to. All right, so there we go. So I have a song opened up. So now the main thing that I want to be able to do is I want to be able to get to my external devices. So let's go to Studio One and let's go to Preferences. Boom, there we go. And here we're already on the External Devices tab. Here's my audio setup and then my locations and then all of my general stuff. All right, so here is the External Devices tab, and you can see here I have an external instrument. Not device. These are external devices. These are controllers, external device. These are my external instruments. It is the external version of what a VST instrument is to Studio One. So I just have a single MIDI out going into the MIDI in on all of these modules, and I can change presets and things like that, so it's not a problem. I can even assign multiple MIDI channels to the same external module if it has multi-timbral access. All right, so you can see here I have the S4. That's my first one. So if I double click on this, I can show you how this is routed. So what I did is I made sure that I turned on all of the MIDI channels. And if I had some sequences that I wanted to follow, I could actually turn on the MIDI clock so that anytime I started the tempo in Studio One and I set the external module to receive MIDI clock, it would actually time any kind of sequences within the module with the tempo playing in Studio One. Very, very cool. You also have a MIDI clock start and MIDI time code, and I can go into these in another video. All right, so now you haven't really had to do anything with any of the automation intervals or anything like that. As that comes up, I'll let you all know. But the thing to remember is that you want to set up an external instrument. So if I actually set up a new one, let's go add. I would want to choose new instrument, not new keyboard and not new control surface, an instrument. Then I would be able to choose the outs. I would not be using the receive from because we're not going to be using the module to program anything. Unless, of course, you got a keyboard. That's a whole nother video. So we're going to be wanting to use the send to. So I'm going to click on this here, and you can see I have a list for everything. There is the list for my Studio 2.4. That's the MIDI out for that. And then my Atom and all the other stuff that I have here. But the important ones for this video are the MIDI outs 1 through 8. And if you look at the picture again, if I show you the picture here, you can see that I have it labeled on the far right there. You can actually see that I have it labeled MIDI out 1, MIDI out 2, MIDI out 3. So then in going back here, I would actually say if I wanted, let me go back here. If I wanted to hook up an external instrument to my S4, you can see my Alesis S4 is on MIDI out 1. So I would actually go here to the send to and choose MIDI out 1. And I know I already have it set up. I'm just going to show you. I want to make sure I have all my MIDI channels available. And if I'm going to use MIDI clock, and then I would change the device name to Alesis S4. So now when I click save, boom, it actually shows it right here. And I can double click on this and I can see everything that I set up for that external instrument. Now, I did the same things for MIDI out number 2, which is the DM5, MIDI out 3, which is my Proteus, and MIDI out 4 and MIDI out 5, which is for my sound canvas and piano module. So, once I have that set up, you will actually notice that it shows up in the Instruments tab. Boom. If we go to External Instruments, there are all of my modules. It doesn't get any easier than that. I'm going to pull out my keyboard, my Presonus PS49. So if I want to play the drums from the Alesis DM5, I can actually do that. And I can go ahead and arm the track and hit the keyboard and, oh, hey, what's going on? I'm not hearing my instrument. Okay, let me show you how to do that. So the other thing that needs to be done is you need to be able to have all of your external MIDI gear plugged into their own inputs. Now, in my case, I have a Studio Live, so I have lots of inputs. If you've got something like an 1824, you can have as many as 2, 4, 6, 8. You can have as many as 4 stereo devices actually hooked up to it. So let me show you that real quick. So I'm going to go to Studio One. Actually, I'm going to go to Song, and I'm going to go to Song Setup. Now, this is a template that you can set up. So if I click on this, you can see here that for all of the inputs that I'm using in Studio One and on my mixer, I have an input chosen with the titles of the devices that I set up in the external instrument section. So there's my Alesis S4, my DM5, my Proteus, my sound canvas, and my Roland TD3. And I got one for my sound module in here somewhere. Let's see, where is it? There we go, the piano module. Okay, so now, here's what I have to do. If I want to use this instrument, this external instrument that I have pulled up a track for that I can record MIDI, but I can't hear, I'm going to open up the mixer. I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to set up an aux channel. Now, on the aux channel, I am going to go to the inputs, and I am going to choose my DM5. And there we go. Now I can hear the inputs that I am using for the outputs of my DM5 hooked up to this aux channel. So now basically I've set up a kind of a VST instrument that I can use the same way. So if I want to do any programming and stuff like that, the options are pretty much unlimited. It really depends on what kind of options your external module has. Finding all of these and using them is quite a challenge. And there is no preset options per se. You just have to pan through them, and I'll show you that in a second. But you have all of these options that you can control everything from the pan to the volume and everything else. So this is this is something you have to experience for yourself. I can't really show you this because every module is different. All right, but the important thing that I have here is I have volume control over the inputs that my DM5 are plugged into, and I have MIDI control right within Studio One. So let's see, let me go ahead and turn on a click. All right, so let's see if I can. Looks like I got a dusty output jack there. All right, let's see if I can do this. Is this too loud? I think it is too loud. Let me lower this. There we go. So let's go ahead and record a beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I can do the same thing. I can double click, I can go ahead and right click, and I can select all, and I can hit the Q button to quantize, and now my external drum module is synced. Just like that. Makes it really simple. So you can use this and treat this like a VST instrument, but you are actually triggering an outside source. So now the question is going to be, well, how do I print this track if I like it? Okay, so if I close this song and I want to reuse this again, I'm going to have to actually turn on all the external gear again. But if I like it, and I know I'm not going to change it, I can do a right click and I can say bounce selection, and it's going to open up a new box that lets me choose which inputs to record and bounce in real time. So let's see if this works. Even with the funky connection there. Perfect. So now I'm just going to say bounce track, and it records an audio version in real time. And it stops at the end, and boom, there's my audio track. Now, I know that it doesn't look that loud, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn this up. So let's see it muted. Ooh, it actually didn't record. Wonder why it didn't record. So let's figure this out. All right, so it actually, nothing recorded. So let's see, what did I do wrong here? Let me open up this. Let me actually do a Control-Z and go back. All right, so there's that. All right, so now I am going to right-click, and I'm going to say bounce. And, oh, looks like I might have, oh, you know why? I have the wrong thing selected. I'm not using the S4. I'm using the Alesis DM5. Watch this. Makes a big difference. Okay, there you go. So now you can see the importance of making sure that when you do this, you're selecting the right inputs. And I'm sure that through the whole course, when I wasn't paying attention, everybody out there is like, no, you don't have the right record input selected. Okay, so that's always good to know. All right, so now that we know that we have the right ones done, let's go ahead and bounce the track. 2, 3, 4. There we go. And that's just because I've got this thing on here. There we go. See, some things never change. All right, so now I can turn this down again because I do have a coherent wave file. So now you can see that once you do the bounce, that you have, or Studio One has muted the MIDI, so you're not double triggering. Let's see what it sounds like. There it is. So there we go. I have an audio track and I have a MIDI track, and if I ever want to change it, I can delete the audio track that we just created and just redo the bounce. If I'm sure that this is what I want, I can go ahead and hide the track, and there we go. There's my drum track. All right, so now this can also be done with the other instruments as well. So let's see, I'm going to right-click here, and I'm going to hide this channel as well, because that's done, because now we just have an audio track. So let's do one more. Let's do my Proteus and bring that in. And arm that, and of course, it's not going to make a sound, so I need to right-click. I need to do an aux channel, and I need to select the correct inputs for the Proteus. There is the Proteus. Let's see. So now, let's go back to the top. Let's hit record. Let's go ahead and hit record. And record on 2, 3, 4. Perfect. Let's see how that recorded. All right, let's go ahead, right-click, and let's do a bounce. And make sure that we're going from the right inputs. There we go. Let's see if that's working. 3, 4. Beautiful. All right, so and it's important to know that this is just for auditioning to make sure you've got the right sound, and I don't know why I didn't before. But that's okay. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and say bounce track. Beautiful, and we're going to disarm, and it's already muted the MIDI. We're going to right-click, we're going to say hide. Nope. We're going to right-click, we're going to say hide. Let's go back to the mixer. And then for the actual MIDI track, we are going to right-click and hide this. Boom, so there. So now we have 2 recorded tracks from our external gear. Full control. Mixability. And we can go ahead and loop it if we want. Let's go ahead and see if we can do a loop. And we're going to activate the loop. Turn off the click. Flawless. I love it. There it is. All right, so that pretty much takes care of how to use the external MIDI, getting everything routed, setting it up in Studio One with both the external instrument and the audio routing. If you have a lot of external gear and you've only got a 2-input interface, you're going to have to do a patch bay thing or just plug things in as you need them. The ability to bounce is really going to help you in a situation like that. But if you're like me, maybe you have an 1824 or one of the big Motu where you've got 8 or 16 inputs, or you've got the big mixer like I have here, and you have inputs for just about everything in the world, that is the easiest way to set all of this up. So you can access your external MIDI gear just like you do your VST instruments, or similar to how you access them. You can print them, you can redo the MIDI, you can see here that the tracks that I've hit are all in here. I can reactivate them at any time and rebounce, make changes to the MIDI and everything like that. Just remember, you got to turn the gear back on, and everything like that in order to start working with the MIDI again. Otherwise, you have your tracks. You can do an edit, you can cut, you can add effects to the printed versions of the external gear that you've put out there. There are a ton of options for those of us that really do like to use our external MIDI gear. And again, of course, in Studio One 6, I think this started partway through Studio One 5 as well, you can actually see the external instruments that you set up and drag them in just like your VST instruments. They're under the Instruments tab, and they're under this tab here that says External Instrument. Very, very cool. All right, I hope you guys found that useful, and I will see you all in the next video. Remember, if you could, like and subscribe to my channel and enable the notifications so that I know you're looking for me. Very cool. That should be it, and I will see you all in the next video.